Welcome to this program. Let's save the world with happiness, with today's program focus being on the big picture. What do I mean by the big picture? Is that you have to understand that there are a lot of elements or factors in creating the happiest life. You also have to understand that all factors or elements are not equal, although each is necessary. You have to understand the big picture so that you realize that focusing on just a single critical element doesn't allow you to live the happiest life. My name is David Andrew. I'm a lifetime engineer and the author of An Engineer's Guide to Happiness, establishing the critical elements of happiness for a fabulous life. If you don't know what an engineer is, that's okay. Generally speaking, an engineer uses scientific knowledge to design, construct, and maintain just about everything around us, from roads to buildings to delivery methods and electrical systems. My goal, and the goal of this program, is to make each generation happier than the last. So let's start by learning together all we can about happiness. I will tell you up front that my road was not an easy one, and I suspect many of you listening may have had a tough life. But I promise you now, no matter your past, no matter your income, no matter your current circumstances, I promise you that I can lead you to an amazing life. Your life is only in front of you. This program is an objective analysis of how to live that happiest life going forward. What do I mean by an objective analysis? It means I introduce you to and I discuss at length each of a list of critical elements we all need to live our life to the fullest potential, but by not only avoiding pitfalls, but also accelerating to a finish line that you can't even see. If someone asks me if I'm excited about the future, my resolute answer is an emphatic yes. And that's not a subjective answer. It's not just a feeling I have. It's a very objective answer. I can give you many specifics and details as to why I'm excited about my future, because it is the future. It's based only on possibilities. That means I'm objectively excited about all the possibilities. This program is about conveying knowledge, because knowledge transcends where you live, how you were raised, your economic situation, your nationality, the color of your skin, and whether you're tall or short, slender or heavy, fast or slow. Where you come from does not determine where you can go and what you can achieve. You will learn to never discount yourself. I will tell you from the start that you must ignore or get rid of any victim mentality. Do not accept it. It's like giving up on life. Blaming others is not a solution to any problem you may have. Again, let's stick to objective facts. What you were born with, where you were born, whom you were born to, doesn't matter. Your starting line, just like mine, was just different from everyone else's. That's just one of the elements that makes you unique. In today's program, I want to begin with telling you a little about me. I'm a guy who's had to earn every penny I've ever gotten. Well, there was my grandparents' birthday cards with $1 or $2, but I'd actually now consider that a very good thing in terms of valuing what I've earned. Although I didn't think that struggling to earn that money was a good thing when I was younger, I was certainly not thinking of that valuable lesson I was learning when I, as a 13-year-old, was pushing a heavy lawnmower up a hill several times, followed by trying to control its speed when I had to mow parallel path downhill without slipping. It was a tough way to earn money. That said, I can also imagine if I was born into a family with wealth and not required to work at a young age, I would quite likely be of different character. But I also hope that's not true. I've always been a driven or optimistic person. Some call it an innate entrepreneurial quality. Today, I know that I'm an incredibly fortunate man who remains very optimistic. And I ask why, objectively. I don't ask why rhetorically. The study of happiness actually will help both you and I to better understand the why. And understanding the why requires us to understand all the critical elements that goes into living the happiest life. Let me for a moment present this in another way so that you can understand the meaning of what a critical element is. As an engineer, I can design a bridge. That bridge, in order to have the greatest integrity and the longest life, has numerous critical elements. In my example, let's pretend that the bridge is a suspension bridge. I think everyone listening would understand that in a suspension bridge, there are many critical elements. As an example, the bolts are critical. The cabling is critical. The girders are critical, and even the mixture of the concrete used to make the bridge is critical. If the bolts fail, the bridge fails. If the cables fail, the bridge fails. Thus, they are critical. Well, instead of designing a bridge, this program is designing happiness based on the same science-based engineering principles used to design that bridge. What are the critical elements? Just as an example, those bolts and suspension bridge that make happiness. I've remained optimistic ever since I figured out the critical elements needed to live the happiest life. If you truly follow them, as I explain them one by one in this series of programs, I am certain you'll have a more rewarding life, a more positive outlook, and definitely more happiness. By listening to this program, I promise you that you will see things differently in a very positive and helpful way. It is kind of like those folks that just got through a medical emergency and only then realize how precious every moment can be. You don't need to wait for a medical emergency. This program will convey that knowledge you need to live a happier life. Perhaps this program will also help to reinforce some things you already recognize, but you just didn't really focus on as being critical. You will learn that even very small things or decisions in your life can put you on a path to an amazingly life-changing outcome. Kind of like the person who got into a life-changing car accident, but would have avoided the accident if they had just left the house 15 seconds sooner, or if they weren't angry and driving too fast. The critical elements are part of an objective system versus an emotional or merely subjective system that provides specific steps to a clearly happier life. To understand the system, you also have to understand human behavior, including objectively evaluating your own behaviors. The objective of me presenting these programs should be clear in order to benefit you and everyone you care about the most. When I use the term you, I mean this program can benefit everyone, regardless of age, financial status, sex, education, nationality. There are no excuses not to learn throughout your life. and especially all you can learn about happiness. So let me make the objective of this program crystal clear. The objective of this program is to have your life exceed my life in terms of happiness. I couldn't be more sincere. Just as parents want their children to be happier, to have a better life than they did, that is my desire for you. Imagine how great a world would be if we could objectively have each generation happier than the prior generation through education. Wow, what a thought. What a goal to achieve. As a person of science, I know of no better way to start that effort than at the beginning. So let's begin. I have the audacity to believe that each of us can change the world by making ourselves happier and those around us happier. And if we can make others happier, so can they, and so on. As an engineer, I like specifics. I've learned to focus on details. I look at things objectively instead of subjectively. I focus on results based on actions. Through this focus and my life experiences, I've developed these critical elements to happiness, and that is exactly what I wish to impart to you. Think of this program as you would a financial investment, using relatable, fundamental analogies to convey a point of view is my preferred methodology. Thus, in this first instance, I'm going to compare the knowledge that you're going to gain here to money and hence the investment. Financial experts will tell you that time is your best friend when it comes to making money work for you. Think of knowledge in the same manner. The sooner you gain knowledge, the more you'll benefit in life from that education. One of the critical elements of happiness is to continue to seek knowledge throughout your life, even if just through new experiences. You will find life more rewarding if you can learn to play an instrument, learn a new language, learn to surf, learn how to plant a robust garden, learn CPR, or even learn how an electrical circuit works. In the financial world, the term that describes investing early is compounded interest. As an example, if you invest $10,000 when you're 50 years old, you won't have much in savings if you wish to retire at 62. In fact, you'll have just $22,522, assuming a 7% annual return. Given the exact same compounded interest at the exact same rate of 7% annually, you'll have $171,443. That's more than 7 times the $22,000. If you had done nothing more than invest that exact same $10,000 at the age of 20 versus the age of 50. Well, think of learning about the critical elements in the same manner. The sooner you understand the critical elements, the more you will benefit through life. That knowledge can't be taken from you. This program has almost nothing to do with money, except to say that you have to establish a baseline of income and live within your means. I'll address money and those issues in later programs. But the reason I don't discuss money at great length here is because in the beginning, I look at it, again, objectively, and there's no factual data that correlates happiness and the amount of wealth you attain. That said, the reason I say you must live within your means is because it's pretty hard to have daily happiness, a major goal of this program, if every day you're fighting financial concerns. After all, it is the continuous addition of daily happiness that leads to living the happiest life. Let's stay briefly on the topic of money. I'll tell you right now that you should never, And it is rare that I can make such an absolute statement, but I will use that term never in this instance. Spend a penny of your money based on someone else's perception of you. That means you should never make a purchase simply because you think it'll make you look more important or desirable to other people. You should make a purchase based on only how you feel personally and what you need. Simply said, don't spend a penny on trying to impress others. I might say objectively that the most critical element of the critical elements is to learn to recognize those who truly care for you in life. They are your, what I term, the core of support, and will likely be with you for most of your life. This program will make clear that there is an incredible difference between those in life who are just acquaintances, those who are friends, and those who are your core of support. Thus, it is critical that you learn how to recognize in a very objective manner those who truly love you. It's a very hard lesson in life to trust someone only to have that trusted individual turn against you. It hurts to be betrayed. Because this is so important, I'm going to repeat this statement. The most critical element of the critical elements is to learn to recognize those who truly care for you in life. You have to understand that the people who truly care for you in life are especially those who truly love you. That's the highest standard. And they will not be great in number. That's simply a fact. And it's not a bad thing. In fact, your core of support may not be people, but maybe just one person. But wow, what an amazing person he or she is. You will learn that one of the critical elements for a fabulous life is to share it mostly with that person or those people who are your core of support. Your core of support doesn't care about the value of your car, the value of your home, the designer of your purse, or the type of smartphone you own. They care only about your happiness. Your core of support is never jealous of you or envious of you. Could you imagine your mom or dad being jealous of your success? So if you win the lottery, it is a person in your core of support who you absolutely know will be happy for you without any expectation of financial gain for themselves. How many of you know people like that? Those are the type of people you should want most around you. That person who is happiest for you when things are going well is also the person who you'll call when you feel in pain. Your core of support cares deeply about you. Have you ever asked yourself this simple yet critical and objective question about someone? Does this person really care more about my happiness than their own? And I mean literally. Ask the question out loud when you're alone. A person who is in your core of support is someone who would actually give you one of their organs. They'd immediately drop everything and show up at your door if you said you needed help. A common model for your core of support is your mom or dad. Think of a perfect mom or dad as a model for your core of support. It's a person who is truly happy when you get a promotion. It's a person who cries when they know they might not see you in 6 months. That is the pedestal upon which a core of support person rests. It's a person who, when you ask the question, does this person really care about my happiness more than they care about their own, elicits an immediate yes. You will not only know it, you'll feel it. A person who will be in your core of support does not receive a fuzzy yes or a maybe answer. That's why you will likely have a very small group that you would call your core of support. This also means that you will not know if a person is part of your core of support for quite some time. It may take years. It'll likely take challenges between the two of you. One of the characteristics of the core of support is absolute trust. And absolute trust can't be earned quickly. It takes time. For example, I have an incredibly kind, accomplished, and confident older sister. She is a part of my core of support. If she called me and said, I need your help, hurry over and bring a shovel and a bag of lye, I'd be in my car within minutes with a shovel and a bag of lye and no further questions. But I also understand for her to make that call, she feels the same way about me. Even though we've never talked about it, we just know. And that's because I have a lifetime of experiences and knowledge of my older sister. Because she is my sister, I know her true character. I know her strengths and her weaknesses just as she knows mine. There's nothing hidden between us. This knowledge took time, and that passage of time provides a measure of trust. That is the pedestal that a core of support individual sits upon. Do you have someone you can call who can call you? If not, what does that objectively say about you or those you associate with currently in your life? It is the opinion of your core of support that you should value above all others. Let me also be clear that the number of friends you have doesn't mean you have more sincere or truer core of support. Actually, it's likely quite the opposite. Objectively, there's no link between the number of likes you have on social media and happiness. And there's no correlation between happiness and the number of friends you have. That doesn't mean that friends are not important. They could be critically important if you don't have a true core of support, and especially if you've not yet found your lifelong partner. I sincerely wish for no one to be alone. But don't confuse someone who is a friend with an individual who is your core of support. What's a good example of a good measure to know if you're a good person or a good friend yourself? You're likely a good person or a good friend if people find it difficult to say goodbye to you when you leave. As I mentioned earlier, friends can form an important role in a happy life. They form an important role because the worst kind of life is one in which you're lonely. That said, your mom should not be your best friend. It's not because she's not amazing. Your best friend should be someone likely in your age group or perhaps someone who has a similar passion. Your mom is not someone you go to a dance club with, just as there are certain movies you don't watch with your mom. Even though friends are important, a person with 200 online friends is not twice as happy as a person with 100 online friends. In fact, the opposite again is likely true. And I'll address this again in later programs. A friend is commonly found because of where you live, where you work, where you went to school. If you change jobs or move, that friend may or may not remain the same level of friend. And that's not a bad thing. That's a part of life. Having new acquaintances and forming new friendships can be exciting and rewarding. One of the critical elements of happiness in life is sharing it. When I find things particularly important, such as the overall objective of this program, I hope you don't mind that I repeat them. I will repeat that the goal or objective of this program is to have your life exceed my life in terms of happiness. I want you to be able to look forward and feel excitement. I also want you to be able to look backward in a few years and think that life's been pretty amazing. I ask that you trust me when I say that is a very high standard to meet. That is my motivation to present this program after many years of people asking me to do so. It's like the gift of a father to a son, a mother to a daughter. Loving parents should above all want their children to be happier than them. Notice I didn't say richer than them, because I stated earlier, happiness is not based on the amount of money you have. Unfortunately, my father didn't understand the critical elements. He did not have my life experiences or guidance to teach him those skill sets, and thus he didn't consider the benefits of sitting me down to tell me about what he saw as critical elements. And I didn't have enough life experiences to figure out the critical elements until I was in my late 20s, if that early. It's not like I can remember a specific date. I think that my late 20s seemed to be about the time when I started to be more objective and change my way of thinking. I needed more life experiences in the real world versus school. I needed more interactions with various groups of people, and I needed to travel to experience totally different cultures. There's a factual statement that you don't know what you don't know. And some of the worst characteristics you'll meet in life are those who think they know it all. The critical elements are in fact very logical in hindsight once you know all the elements, but they're complex to perform correctly. That's why I hope you stick with this program to learn all the critical elements. I know you wish you could simply read a short list to understand the critical elements. And in fact, I wish I could present them in that way. It would save me the difficult effort of presenting these programs. Let me present one such analysis that may help you to understand more about happiness with a simple statement. Most of us feel protected at home. There's a balance between protection and isolation. Too much isolation is a bad thing. Being safe and protected is generally a good thing, but not if that protection does not allow you to understand the world around you. You can't live in a bubble and get the most out of life. So generally speaking, a person who does not venture out beyond his or her protections, who doesn't take risk, will not have the best life. You don't start to truly experience in life until you leave home, wherein you're forced to make decisions about your own life. You have to figure it out on your own. And that is why I had to leave home and get out of school before I could begin to understand the world we live in and discover all those elements that make up the critical elements. It also took time to understand what elements are more critical than others. For example, I already noted your core of support is critical to happiness versus being alone in life. I was one of those kids who raced for the front door to get out of the house, but once I got beyond the proverbial front door, I had to immediately make decisions. Learning how to make decisions is a great thing. Let me give you another analogy to help me make a point. This analogy is about learning how to drive a car. What if you were a teenager and I handed you the keys to a car for the very first experience behind the wheel, and my sole statement or lesson to you as I opened the driver's door was, figure it out. If you immediately tried to drive any significant distance, you would fail. You'd have difficulty understanding all the controls, which in fact are quite limited compared to all the skills you must have to master life and fully understand happiness. In order to drive a car with proficiency and expertise, you need very specific instructions and practice with those controls found in the car. And that was after you likely sat in the car for many years and were able to observe someone operating the car. What if I gave you the keys to a submarine instead of a car? With the car, you were able to observe it being operated by a good driver. What would be your first experience operating the submarine look like? Thus, objectively, the less experience you have with something, for example, operating a submarine, compared to even very limited experience, for example, someone driving a car, the more time it will take for you to master that skill. The question I ask those who are adults who drove is, did you get more instruction on how to drive and operate a car than you did regarding relationships, Has anyone sat you down and spoken to you for hours regarding the critical elements for a happy life? Did you get more instructions regarding how to drive and operate a car than you did in decision-making skills and discussion on how to be genuinely happy in life? As an example, exactly what specific instructions were you given about what to expect in your first relationship? Your parents knew that you were inherently going to have a first love or a first crush. Did they tell you in advance when you should expect to have those feelings? Did they tell you about what you were going to feel? Did they tell you where it would likely happen? Did they tell you what would likely happen? Did they prepare you for when it failed? Did they tell you that failing was not a bad thing? Did they teach you that failing is in fact possibly a good thing that you need not be afraid of? And in fact, you can plan for failure to learn the most. Did they tell you that no one has ever done everything right the first time? In this program, you will learn that you will have to overcome failure to gain the most. You will learn that actually welcoming challenges and facing fears is a good thing. You will learn that failure is not always a bad thing. You will learn that you do not have to be the smartest to accomplish the most. Sometimes you simply have to work longer on the problems that need to be solved. You may have to be the person who works the hardest. Failure is an opportunity to begin again, but with more knowledge. A failure is not always a fault. It may be the best one can do at a certain point in time. The true mistake would be not to try. Think of going to the moon as a goal, logically speaking. If you're trying to reach a goal such as going to the moon, in many instances, you will exceed faster by eliminating all the failures. So actually, you want to fail at a faster rate to get to a success quicker. Feeling discouraged and experiencing failure are two of the common stepping stones to success. Those who are in your core of support will never discourage you. And those who do discourage you are simply noise for you to ignore. You will learn that failure is something you can plan for. When you experience failure to whatever degree, you will understand that it is merely a part of a process that we've all experienced. In a similar vein, another critical element is that preparedness is very beneficial to a happier life. I'm also going to repeat that statement. You will learn later in future programs that preparedness, like education and practice, is a critical element to happiness in life. I will add that learning to hold a principled position is also very good in life. In fact, President Lincoln was quoted as saying, "I'm a slow walker, but I never walk back." That doesn't mean we don't make mistakes and that we can't learn from them. It means that when it comes to your core values, there can be no mistakes. A core value can be respecting one another, honesty, helping the weak, or being respectful. You will learn in later programs that it's natural to try to hold on to what you have instead of discovering what is possible. Have you ever been taught to think in decades instead of days as a form of analysis? As an example, just because your home is comfortable for today and tomorrow, is it also the home you want for the next 20 years? What are the variables in the next 20 years? What can you learn by factoring in time? These types of questions and facts will help you with a lot of decisions. Another core element is that when you are planning, you should also do so in writing. Putting something in writing adds clarity to the endeavor and to the lesson. There's a clear difference between talking about something versus recording it in writing. This is one of those things that sounds like a minor change, but its outcome can be significant. We also naturally feel prouder and thus talk more about our wins, and we don't talk about our losses. As I mentioned earlier, you will see that losses or failures will happen. Having a loss or failure is not a bad thing, but it's the beginning of something else that can actually be much better. In the same regard, you cannot change the past. The failures or losses happened. But what if you were prepared for the loss or failure? It is not a question of whether we will face failures. Failures and disappointments are a part of life for everyone. The real question is, how will you choose to react to failure when it comes your way? In fact, you will learn in future programs that some of the smartest people actually seek failure as an outcome. Realize, as an analogy, that you can make a chain stronger by identifying its weakest link. If you're testing a relationship, it's the bad times that test sincerity. It's easy to have a great relationship in good times when everyone has money, everyone's healthy, and there's no life-changing decisions to be made. How much better would life be if you could be prepared to accept a loss or have knowledge in advance of something bad instead of being shocked or surprised by it? The more you know, the less you fear. That's a strong lesson. And the less you fear, the happier you'll be. Similarly, imagine if you and I speak to every person out there feeling so much pain that they would be considering suicide. Now imagine that you could go back in time, speak to that person in advance, and prepare them in such a manner that you could prevent such feelings. I am suggesting in this program that you can do just that. You can change outcomes by being prepared with knowledge of happiness. Understanding the critical elements not only enhances the happiness in your life, but also reduces the impact of the bad. I'll repeat that. Understanding the critical elements not only enhances the happiness in your life, but also reduces the impact of the bad. Learning in advance of what is likely to happen is much better than experiencing something alone or with no knowledge. Let me give you some examples. That's why many businesses, local governments, the military, and even hospitals run drills that model possible events. So folks do not panic when similar events actually happen. Imagine being a firefighter and being told to put out a fire without first experiencing the training that has you experience a fire in a controlled setting. Imagine driving your car off a bridge and into a river without first experiencing a controlled demonstration where you learn not to panic. The outcomes are totally different. In a similar analogy, the critical elements are a system that will help you to handle extreme situations better by preparing you for life's possible and perhaps likely events. Although this entire program is actually more focused on helping you to see how amazing life can be so that you can live your happiest life, it also recognizes that there will be losses and failures, and thus it establishes a system to soften those life events. A perfect life is actually about balance. Life is like riding a surfboard. It's most stable when you're moving forward. A great standard to evaluate relationships or activities is whether more involvement would enhance your day in life. If you have a relationship with someone and that someone brings negativity into your life, you should try to avoid that relationship. But negativity should not be equated to those in need. There are those in need of education, in need of compassion, in need of supervision, to name a few. Helping those people can be extremely rewarding. What I mean by negativity is someone who takes you off the path you should want to follow. Don't get into the car with someone who's an unsafe driver. Don't allow peer pressure to cause you to have just one more drink. But on the opposite side of the coin, Also realize that your life will not be as fulfilled if you don't have any challenges. Have a goal, have a dream, or an objective is very fulfilling. If you want to live your happiest life, keep establishing goals to strive for and keep you busy. Let me give you an analogy. If you begin to play a game and you easily win each and every time, how long would you remain interested in that game? A week? A month? A year? Part of what makes life exciting is challenges, and hopefully most of those challenges are those that you decide to take on. A challenge to learn to play the piano, run a marathon, surprise your teacher, lose 50 pounds or do 50 sit-ups in a week. I'm not saying that a life of constant challenge is a good thing. A life of constant challenge is clearly the opposite to a life where you're never challenged. A life where you're never challenged is also not a perfect life. As I mentioned earlier, life's about balance, but it's not an equal balance. You want to experience a vastly greater amount of happiness than you do unplanned challenges. Who would not want to experience more happiness on a daily basis? Because life as a whole can be difficult. Returning to the analogy of learning to drive a car, this program is similar to learning to drive, and that I cannot simply hand you the keys to a car and expect you to know exactly how to operate that car, especially to its full potential. Even if you had committed to memory the owner's manual of a car, it doesn't mean you'll know how to drive it. This entire program is a manual, a list of critical elements to operating your life to its full potential by not only avoiding the crashes, but also accelerating to the finish line that you can't even see. If someone asks me if I'm excited about the future, my resolute answer, as I mentioned, is an emphatic yes. And that's not a subjective answer. It's very objective. I can give you many specifics and details as to why I'm excited about my future, because it is my future, though it's based only on possibilities. Just as a professional engineer can prove to you the proper operation of a system, once you finish listening to the entire program, if I conveyed the critical elements correctly, you'll be able to maximize your happiness. I can list for you many things that I'm looking forward to experiencing, so much so that I constantly mention to my amazingly wonderful wife that I wish I could slow down time. As a side note, I also wish that once in my life someone would tell me that I'm annoyingly brilliant. I feel like I don't have enough time left, and yet I expect to live for several more decades. That's how many things I'm still excited to do and experience. That's also my wish for you, that you will be so excited with life that you'll want to slow it down. If someone asks me if I've had a great life thus far, I would reply yes. I've had rough patches and failures, absolutely. But they're in my past. I can also list the things that have made me very fortunate in life thus far. Similarly, I wish that you have an answer when somebody asks you, perhaps at some party or gathering, if you had a great month or a great year, and specifically why. In fact, I hope you have a long list of answers. Feeling the need to slow down life is a good thing. I can give you an analogy of two totally different vacations. The first type of vacation is one where you plan to see 10 different locations within a 7-day period. Second type of vacation is where you have a list of 10 different possible locations and you prioritize 3 within the same 7-day period. Which of the two vacations is more relaxing and arguably more rewarding? The lessons from this program should lead you to conclude that the second type of vacation is more rewarding because the main objective of the vacation is relaxing and not merely seeing a large quantity of locations. Besides, the first 3 locations you prioritized will likely help you to decide whether you want to return to the area to see the other 7. And if so, that vacation area will be added to the list of things you'll be looking forward to experiencing. You'll be approaching that future vacation with a much better education of the area, so your next visit can be that much better. It's fabulous to look forward to things in life. As an engineer, the way I approach this entire program is to focus on the tools that will allow you to be excited about the future. I choose the word allow because it is all up to you. In simple terms, life is all about time and how you choose to use that time. One of the building blocks of time is a day. Just as I'd approach an engineering problem with a unit of measure, I choose to formulate the critical elements to be most focused on a day. The goal is to have as many amazing days in the future as possible. A day is a simple measure of time that we all understand. I've designed this entire program to provide you with the tools to increase your joy in each given day. The benefit of having the timeline limited to a day is that it allows you to measure a degree of happiness before you start all over again. In other words, a goal is to learn from past days to exceed happiness in future days. When you have a bad day, which is a part of life, it'll end and you'll start anew with the next day. One feature of this program is going to teach you that you will have to learn to leave those bad days behind. There is no benefit to those bad days except for what you learn from them. I'll repeat that. There is no benefit to those bad days except for what you learn from them. You will learn that memories focused on bad days or bad things will harm you. You must learn to forget about them. Happiness is not found behind you. It is found in front of you, quite literally, in both time and fact. Those things right in front of you that you choose to have around you, if chosen correctly, are going to give you an amazing life. It is the future time that allows you those experiences. At the same time, you want to leave the negative behind you. You must learn to leave it far behind you so it's no longer a thought. It's a forgotten memory. I'll repeat that one more time because of its importance. The negatives in life need to be left behind you so you can wholly focus on what's amazingly ahead of you. And notice I use the plural term, negatives, because they are just a fact of life. No matter how well you prepare, there will always be things outside your control that can be negative. My true hope is that you learn to minimize and quickly get beyond all negative things that could make you lose focus on the great things that will also take place. Before I leave this subject, let me give you an example scenario, or one of those fundamental analogies to make my point. Let's say you've been looking forward to a musical concert with really excited anticipation. After all, this concert includes your favorite quartet that you followed for years. You've even invited someone extra special to join you for the event, and you could not be more excited. But on the way to that event, you get pulled over by a policeman because your tag is unknowingly expired. You're about 4 blocks from the concert venue. He knows you're going to the event and you're excited to do so. But instead of writing you a warning, he writes you a very costly ticket. For a person who does not understand the critical elements of happiness, that ticket could ruin the concert. I'm going to teach you in the later program a concept called compartmentalization. You have to learn to compartmentalize your thoughts. This means you need to get those negative thoughts out of your mind and focused on the future in a positive way. You already know that you can address the ticket at a later date. And it has no relevance to this concert. Those are both facts. But if you keep thinking about that ticket, it will harm your experience at the concert. In this example, not only are you harming yourself, but you're also likely going to harm the experience of the person you're with because you're going to act differently. You have only 4 blocks to set aside this negative thought, and there's a clear motivation to do so. You want to maximize the joy of the concert with that special someone. You need to put that negative thought of the ticket so far behind you that it's not in your memory until a future date when the ticket needs to be addressed. One objective system is to accept the ticket because you don't have a choice. Put a note on your calendar to address it on an appropriate date and forget about it. It's as though you never received that ticket. Why? Because those negative things in life will only harm you. It is solely you who determines your happiness. In a future program, I'm going to give you some tools for objective measures, which I will call virtual compartments. There'll be compartments for good things. There'll be compartments for not good things. There'll be a compartment for things you have to do. There'll be a compartment for lessons you've learned. And because learning is a good thing, there'll be a compartment for things you wish to learn. By starting off with these 5 compartments, you can easily recognize that you want the good things compartment to be a lot bigger compared to the other compartments. In fact, you want the good things to be a gigantic compared to the not good things. The actual goal for you will be to totally forget about the not good things compartment and thus empty it out, because there's no benefit for you to focus on negative things from the past. An important critical element for a happier life is to become an expert in what I call compartmentalization. This is a program on how to live the happiest life. As I mentioned earlier, the building block of time that I'm using in this program is the 24-hour period that we all know is a day. By looking at the length of time as a day, I also want to set standards for what happens in that day. In the past, you likely characterized days as a bad day or a boring day or a so-so day. My goal going forward is for you to be more focused on objective things that happen during a single day. And when I say happen, I mean things that happen to you and things that happen because of you. In the end, I'm going to help you create amazing days, and a lot of them. The amazing day is not about an extraordinary day like winning the lottery or getting that hole-in-one or winning that big game. Those can also happen, but those are less planned. I believe that everyone, young or old, rich or poor, weak or strong, can have a limitless number of amazing days leading to the happiest life. And the more amazing days you have, the more you'll look back and realize you're living a fabulous life. You will then also be excited about events that are in the future. It is critical that a great day today be followed up with as many amazing days in the future for a fabulous life. Don't aim low. Don't settle. You're going to learn to seek amazing in each and every day. The moment that you think that all the great days are behind is the moment that you need to find passions. And I mean that in plural. When I say don't settle, I encourage you to literally say out loud to yourself and those whom you love that you want more. If you've never spoken aloud to yourself, then you'll experience a new feeling of happiness simply by saying out loud, I want more. I want more hugs just like this one. I want more dinners like tonight. I want more time together like this afternoon. I want to see that smile like I see you have now more often. I hope I'm around to hear you say it because it in turn makes me very happy. This is a program that will give everyone many objective and practical tools unique to you as an individual to increase the quality of your life by starting with the building block of amazing days. To create an amazing day, you have to have the understanding or skill set to see what most would say are everyday events as being quite possibly extraordinary. And you have to learn how to create more of those events. As an example, most of us are quite accustomed to everyday activities like walking, but in fact, the ability to walk is actually an extraordinary collection of physiological factors that will allow it to happen. Ask any biomedical engineer. In order to correctly walk, there's a staggering number of physiological things that must happen correctly. In simplistic terms, we have to have inner ear balance, muscle control, and strength to maneuver. Yet most of us in good health take walking for granted. But suppose you got in a car accident and lost your ability to walk for a period of time. Now imagine that all of a sudden, after the accident, you get your feeling back in your limbs and you have the ability to walk again. What would that feeling be like? As you get deeper into this program, you'll begin to recognize that you alone are the one who controls your happiness, and there are many required facets to gain the greatest happiness. Here's another one of those especially important statements that I feel I need to repeat. You alone are the one who controls your happiness. And there are many required facets to gain the greatest happiness. One of those facets is to not take for granted as many things as you currently do. What if you saw only one rainbow in your life? What would it be like to watch? Do you take your marriage for granted? Do you take friendships for granted? Do you take your health for granted? Do you take your work for granted? Do you say thank you without truly meaning it? When was the last time you asked a loved one, how can I make your day better today? Or even better, when was the last time you focused your entire day on someone else? Have you ever taken the day off to arrange a great surprise for someone you love? That could be one of the happiest days of your life as well as for them. In fact, one of the things you're going to learn is that happiness is not all about you. You will learn that making other people, especially those who are a part of your core of support, feel overwhelmingly happy can make you feel extraordinary. You will learn that living your life for yourself instead of for others will not bring you happiness. The greatest life worth living is one where you focus on living it with others. In fact, you will learn in a later program that if you're depressed, that one solution may be to stop thinking about yourself and focus on trying to make someone else feel special and maximizing their happiness for an entire day. Again, stop taking things for granted. Start being more focused on life and thankful for things or people in it. Details matter. For something as simple as paying your bills on time to sending out a thank you to that person who did something kind for you or helped you out. Keys to having an amazing day include learning to appreciate moments within that amazing day and learning how to plan and create a future amazing day that is unique to you. Some amazing days are planned. Some just happen. This may sound counterintuitive, but you will see that amazing days will happen more often as you begin to create more planned ones. Without jumping ahead too far, you will learn in future programs that a fabulous life is not just about you. In fact, it is difficult to make absolute statements, but here goes one. You will be happiest in life when you share it. It is critical to happiness. I'll repeat the critically important statement. You will be happiest in life when you share it. I'll give you a simple example. Let's say you struggled, quite literally, with attaining a college degree. Try to picture your graduation day. You're walking up the aisle. You're about to step onto the stage. As you step toward the stage, you hear the family members cheering enthusiastically for the person in line in front of you as the president of the university reads her name aloud. The cheers are deafening. Now imagine yourself stepping onto the stage and no one you care about is there to witness the event and share it with you. Who's experiencing the better graduation? Although you're standing in the identical line, you're walking the exact same steps. As an absolute statement, I will state that happiness is not an asset that ever decreases being shared. I'll repeat that. As an absolute statement, I will state that happiness is not an asset that ever decreases by being shared. There's a presumption in our society that wealthier, famous individuals have a lot of amazing days. There's an assumption that the wealthier, famous people will have more amazing days than those of us who are middle class or even less fortunate. The truth of the matter is that the amount of money you have in the bank doesn't determine happiness. Do you objectively think that a person who has $10,000 in the bank is half as happy as the person who has $20,000? Do you really think that if someone has over $1 million in the bank, they are endlessly happy? There is objectively no direct relationship between wealth and happiness. And that's because life is so complex. There are many factors that go into creating true happiness. We'll be getting into those elements within this program, but let me repeat that there is no direct relationship between wealth and happiness, with just one exception. As I stated earlier, you cannot live beyond your means. You have to have your fiscal house in order. That said, even if money is a constant struggle for you, you still deserve an amazing day. Can an amazing day just happen? Of course it can. In fact, it happens to many of those around us, but because of their attitude, they don't even recognize it and they let it slip by. One of the critical elements in life is to actually seek and look for amazing moments. And you will more likely create that amazing day when you do so. I'll repeat that statement. One of the ways to make your life happier is to look for amazing moments in their many forms. Be thankful first thing in the morning. The moment you wake up, you can't have an amazing week, an amazing year, or an amazing life without the proper attitude. Also be humble. The person who expects to be treated special will not appreciate as much as the humble person. The examples of amazing moments are as diverse as they are infinite, but you have to recognize them and focus on them, even if momentarily. If possible, write the moments down. Again, you'll learn that part of the critical elements is to put things in writing. Let me give you an example scenario as to why writing things down can literally change a so-so vacation into a vacation that can last forever, with the sole difference being taking a journal on that vacation. There's an objective and clear benefit to writing down the experiences you've had at the end of the day while on vacation. First, you get to relive the day each evening. Who doesn't want to relive a fabulous day with vivid memories? Second, you have a lasting memory that you can refer to for years to come. Third is that you'll learn to be more focused on even the little things during a vacation. To understand the drastic difference, you merely have to objectively consider the differing scenarios. In one scenario, you go on vacation and you record nothing. In a second scenario, you go on a vacation and you take some pictures. Notice I said some pictures. I mean, just a few to create the memory of the day. Too many folks make the mistake of missing a large part of their vacation experiences by taking too many pictures. There's a huge difference between walking through a stunning park and walking through a stunning park solely focused on taking picture after picture. In a third scenario, you go on a vacation, and specifically at the end of each day, not intermittently and throughout the day, you and your fellow travelers sit around a table, perhaps during a great meal, and write down all the exciting things that happened during the day. Again, the memories are as diverse as they are infinite. Maybe you'll write down the cute laugh of the waitress or how fabulous the breakfast tasted. Neither of these can be captured on a camera. Maybe you write down the memory of watching a hot air balloon rise at night as the fire made it glow. Perhaps it was a cool breeze you felt during hiking, or the smell of the pasture. Perhaps it was the silly fall you took in the field when you accidentally tripped over a rock. And notice that I specifically used the word memory in the phrase end of the day. Do not write things down as they happen. Never interrupt the experience itself. That's why Taking pictures can ruin experiences if you take too many. You could be having the best day of your life, but you wouldn't know it if you're always looking for something greener or better. Focus on fully enjoying the current day. You'll have a totally different experience by continuously trying to take photos while walking along a gorgeous nature trail instead of simply walking along that same gorgeous nature trail, but taking only 1 or 2 photos. Don't keep thinking about taking photos. Instead, focus on the people you're with or the nature itself. Photography is based only on what you see. What about what you hear, what you smell? Part of the fun of the journal, which contributes to an amazing day, is to join together, to repeat the experiences together from memory. I will also tell you that the most amazing moments may not be the stunning sunset or the scene of a mountain snowcap. Don't get me wrong. They can also be amazing, but they're not the most amazing. It might be the moment when your partner, out of the blue, stops on the trail, turns, looks into your eyes and softly says, "I'd rather be here with you than any other place in the world. You still amaze me." As mentioned earlier, memories are more amazing when they're shared. That stunning sunset, was pretty spectacular, but it's eclipsed by the moment you shared with your partner. Another benefit of these vacation journals is that you can reread them 10 or 20 years later to create a fabulous evening. Maybe your children will read them someday, so they can model their lives after yours. Although I introduced these 3 scenarios as being on vacation, you should understand that this objective advice is not limited to vacations. You should understand that some of the most amazing moments in your life may in fact be when you find yourself at a specific place and at a specific time to help someone. Maybe it's just with a smile. Maybe it's with a simple joke to make them laugh. Maybe it's to help someone with a car ride when it's raining or cold outside. Maybe it's anonymously leaving that big tip for the waitress working the night shift with taped glasses in an old car. When you're given that gift of being at the right place at the right time, don't just consider helping, objectively act. You will never regret it. Then put it in your journal to reward yourself. Another rule is to ask yourself often if you've had an amazing day. I mean, you should take it a moment, stop thinking about anything else, and focus on that question and answer to that question. Later in this program, I'm going to outline a specific, objective, yet simple system that you can practice, and I submit that you should make it a part of your routine for the rest of your life. That simple system will help you capture and focus on those elements that create an amazing day. Remember and realize that what you practice during a vacation scenario can be repeated in everyday life. By the way, I am not presuming that everyone who hears this program has the ability to take a vacation as the term is understood. But in fact, everyone who hears this program should take mini vacations, such as picnicking in a local park or walking the trails in a national park. I think everyone should strive to have as many amazing days as possible. One of the critical elements is also to write down future goals to experience. Think of it as a bucket list. The goals could be simple. You promise yourself to go to a stage play at least once a year, or perhaps to start piano lessons. It might be to picnic at least once a month in the park. Perhaps it'll be to go on one big vacation per year. Maybe it'll be creating a special handshake with your best friend. Better yet, it could be learning the steps to a special dance with your daughter that someday you'll do with her on her wedding day. Without specific planning, without physically writing it down, the likelihood of you doing any of these things diminishes. I'll repeat that statement. Without specific planning, without physically writing down when you're going to do something, the likelihood of you doing it diminishes. The other benefit is that by writing down the goal, It becomes a more positive experience overall. If you suddenly go to Nashville last minute to catch a play, it's not as nice as planning to go to Nashville next month and choosing the perfect seat in the theater for a special play. By planning ahead, you get to look forward to actually going on that trip. You get to chat about it with others. You get to think about the clothes you're going to be taking and the places you'll eat, and you can read about the folks in the play. I certainly don't mean to say that doing things spontaneously isn't exciting as well. Mixing up spur-of-the-moment activities and planned experiences is the best of both worlds. Again, I bring up the word balance. Lastly, I would suggest listening to each program and ponder what you may have learned for a day or so before you move on to the next program. Consider each sentence as I state it. Many of my statements will have different meanings to you as you go through life. You will come to understand that your life's experiences will affect how you interpret this program. I also ask that if you feel you've benefited from this program, that you tell others about it. I sincerely cannot make the world a happier place without your help.